Hello, I'm Cher, the Shadow Walker, and I'm taking a look at residential hauntings throughout Canada and the United States in the past 48 hours. So I'm starting with Prince Edward Island. And in Prince Edward Island, in the Cornwall region, in a subdivision, a shadowy figure slash negative entity. It occurred on April the 10th at 2:15 a.m. in the morning, and it was the two homeowners and a guest, so three people altogether. A large shadow was seen moving across the basement area. It was accompanied by a sudden localized drop in temperature, estimated at approximately a 10-degree drop, and feeling of being pushed. And this is the third occurrence of this on this property this week. And they reported it to the Ghost Hunter Society of Prince Edward Island. And in a rural property in Goose River, St. Peter's Bay area, a poltergeist. April 9th, throughout the day, it peaked approximately at 8:45 p.m. There were three family members. The entity mimicked the voices of family members calling for help from the upper floor while the person was actually outside. Activity has escalated over the last 48 hours. And they were doing minor interior renovations when this started to occur. And they've consulted a private paranormal investigator. And in a historic residence in Charlottetown, in the Heritage District, and they say this spirit is intelligent. Ongoing, most recent surge at 11 p.m. on April 9th. One person was the primary witness of this. Heavy footsteps heard on the staircase while the witness was alone. The scent of old perfume was documented as lingering in the hallways for over an hour. And this activity is described as a routine presence that intensifies during the spring. And they've reported it to the Atlantic Paranormal Society. And a kitchen. They call it the disruptor. In a private home in Summerside, poltergeist. April 10th at 3:10 p.m. Two homeowners. Sudden, violent movement of domestic objects. A set of keys was reportedly thrown across the kitchen counter while the owner was right there. This specific physical activity began less than 48 hours ago, and it was reported to the local paranormal interest group. So we're taking a look at New Brunswick now. And in New Brunswick, in the St. John area, was a poltergeist, or an energy leech, they call it. So on April 10th, at 4 a.m. in the morning, the two homeowners, every clock in their home, analog clock, stopped exactly at 4 a.m. This was accompanied by localized electrical pops in the master bedroom and the sighting of a translucent figure standing by the window. This is the second time this week the homeowner has reported synchronized mechanical failure, and they reported it to the New Brunswick Paranormal Intake. And in a hallway, it's called the Hallway Pacer. It is in a new subdivision. So it's in the Dieppe area, and they think it's a residual spirit. April 9th through 10th, reoccurring between 1 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. One witness. Distinct heavy boot steps pacing the second floor hallway. The witness is the sole occupant of this house and has no mechanical or structural causes. They had the house checked out. This person, sorry, I shouldn't say he or she. The activity has intensified over the past 48 hours, and they reported it to the Atlantic Paranormal Society. And it's called Drawer Rattler, Physical Manifestation. It's in Fredericton on the north side, and it's a poltergeist. And April 9th at 7:15 p.m., three family members. Kitchen drawers were observed vibrating violently for approximately 30 seconds while the family was having dinner. No systemic activity was recorded in the area. That should be systematic that they put down there, but they didn't. And ongoing. Yes, it's ongoing. They feel like they're being watched in the house. since this event has occurred. And they reported it to a local paranormal investigator and documented it in the private residential case files. And the next one is called Mimic Child, and it's in Moncton near Jones Lake. And it occurred April 11th at 8:10 a.m. And it's two people, it says parents in bracket. Both parents heard distinct voices of their child crying out for them in the living room while their child was confirmed to be fast asleep in a different part of the house. The activity began within a 48-hour period, and it hasn't started. They didn't have this occur before, and they reported it to the New Brunswick Ghost and Urban investigators. Taking a look at Nova Scotia, we're in Hantsport, Nova Scotia right now, and intelligent spirit, it says, stern/religious family. On April the 10th, it peaked around 9:30 p.m. 4 family members, the Kerr family, and investigators. This residence has seen a sharp escalation in the past 48 hours. A visual apparition of a woman seen in period clothing was witnessed in the kitchen area. Simultaneously, a television in an adjacent room was switched on by itself to a religious broadcast at high volume. Investigators are currently active. The investigation is currently active to determine if the presence is tied to the home, which apparently is 175 years old. Quite likely. Or the grounds, more than likely both. And they reported it to a psychic person down there, 2 mediums down there. And in Bedford, residential area, in the Bedford Basin in Halifax, a shadow figure. It occurred on April 11th at 3:15 a.m. One person. The witness reported a tall, distinct, shadowy figure standing at the foot of the bed. The entity did not move or vocalize, but caused a physical pushing against the witness's chest before vanishing. This matches localized reports of pushes and pulls frequently cited in the Bedford Basin perimeter, and they reported it to the Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigators Group. And a mimic cry in a rural residence in Dartmouth in the Cole Harbor boundary area, but classifying it as a poltergeist. Between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on April the 9th, the homeowners hearing their own voices whispered back to them from inside the walls of the master bedroom. This was followed by the sound of scratching that moved from the ceiling down to the floor level. This is a new development for this property within the last 48 hours, and they have a private paranormal consultant, the Atlantic Canadian Network, and their radio disruptor. This is in a private home in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, and it's a poltergeist. Electric interference, it says. On April 10th at 11:45 a.m., 2 witnesses, multiple battery-operated radios in their house began scanning stations simultaneously. When turned off, the devices immediately powered back on to a static frequency that emitted a low growl. Physical objects such as keys and utensils were found relocated to the basement stairs shortly after, and they reported it to the Nova Scotia Paranormal Society. Taking a look at Newfoundland in the past 48 hours, and this one's called the Basement Growler. It's an older private residence in downtown St. John's in the Battery area, and they think it's a poltergeist. April 10th at 3:45 a.m., there was 2 residents and their adult son. Witnesses reported a deep guttural growling coming from the floorboards. When they went to investigate, a heavy trunk was found moved 4 feet from its original position. The air in the room was noted to be thick and difficult to breathe. This is the first report physical movement in this property in 3 years. So they've had them before then. And they reported it to the St. John's Haunted Hike Investigation Team. And a residential property in the Carbonear area of Newfoundland. And this occurred on April 9th at 11:20 p.m. 3 family members. The entity mimicked the sound of the father's distinct cough in the hallway, where the father was confirmed to be in the kitchen on a different floor. This was followed by the sound of the bedroom door clicking shut. Activity has been reported nightly since the beginning of April, and it was documented by Haunted Newfoundland. Nice. And this one here is called the Laundry Room Shadow. It's in a modern home in Pearl Mountain. Shadow figure, it says. April 11th at 9:10, sorry. One homeowner. A solid black mass, approximately 6 feet tall, was seen standing in the laundry room doorway. It remained for approximately 5 seconds before collapsing into the floor. No history of haunting was previously known at this modern address. And this is the second sighting of this specific figure in 48 hours. And they reported it to the Atlantic Paranormal Society. And they call this one the Stair Whistler. It's a heritage home in the Bonavista area of Newfoundland. And they figure it's just a spirit. On April 10th, reoccurring between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m., two homeowners witnessed a clear melody whistling, reminiscent of a sea shanty, was heard moving up the main staircase. The homeowner's dog reportedly tracked the sound with his eyes but refused to approach the stairs. This activity was typically Oh, I get it. This activity typically surfaces during high wind events. And they've reported it to the local folklore preservation group and private paranormal log. Now I'm taking a look at Maine, and in a rural property in the Carmel area of Maine, a poltergeist. On April 10th at 11:15 p.m., two homeowners. The homeowners reportedly heard the sound of heavy objects being dragged across the basement floor directly beneath the living room. Upon inspection, several storage bins had been moved to the center of a room, and they could hear a low vibrating hum, and it was captured on a digital recorder during the event. And this property is currently under active monitoring following a 48-hour physical spike. So they keep moving things in the basement all. And it was reported to the Maine ghost hunters. In a historic residence district of Portland, the Old Port area, on April 11th at 7:45 a.m., one person, the witness, reported seeing a tall, thin shadow in the reflection of the window. Simultaneously, they heard their own voice whisper, "Look at me," from the empty bedroom. The witness reported a feeling of intense static on their skin during this encounter. This is the fourth reported auditory mimic event in this residence since April 9th, and they reported it to the New England Ghost Project. And stairwell shadow in a private home in Bangor, Maine, near Mount Hope. This is a shadow figure, they say. On April 9th at 2 a.m., three family members, all three witnesses observed a solid black figure standing halfway up the main staircase. The figure reportedly dissolved into the wall when the flashlight was aimed at it. The family's dog refused to pass the staircase for the rest of the night. The family has requested a residential cleansing following this 48-hour surge. If somebody knows them, or you're listening, you need your property cleared, not your house. Clear the property first. In a residential property in Augusta, Maine, this is a poltergeist. April 10th, and this is reoccurring between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Two residents, three distinct rhythmic knocks on the kitchen island occurred while both residents were in the room. This was followed by the scent of burnt matches in an unexplained opening and the unexplained opening of the lower cabinet doors. The four knocks have occurred for 2 consecutive days, and they reported it to the Maine Paranormal Society. And that is it for that area. And thank you so much for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, if you have a residential haunting you need help with, my email address is there, and I'll be happy to help you for free. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Bye.